Does the key of C minor really sound tragic? Does the key of D major truly sound heroic? Or is it all just made up in our heads? For centuries, musicians and philosophers have argued about whether each musical key has its own inherent emotional feelings. Some swore that E flat major had a more noble feeling to it, D minor felt very dark, and C major felt very light and pure. But in today's world of modern tuning, are those differences still real, or are we all just abiding by the old myths? Today, we're going to dive into music history, psychology, and science to uncover the truth behind the emotional power of musical keys. And by the end of this video, you'll know whether Beethoven picked the keys for certain emotions or just for his own convenience. Now let's rewind a few hundred years. Back in the Baroque, Classical, and Romantic eras, composers wrote about something that they called key characteristics. Musicians believed that each key carried its own emotional personality. For example, here in C major, it was seen as a pure and innocent key. Playing in D minor, however, people believed gave you a much more dark and somber sound. Some even called it the key of death because of how tragic and serious they felt it was. Here in the key of E flat major, people believed that it had a more noble or heroic sound. But these weren't just random opinions, they actually came from the way that instruments were tuned at the time. Before the 18th century, instruments weren't tuned in equal temperament like they are today. They used systems like mean tone temperament or well temperament. But what does that mean? It means that every key actually sounded slightly different. Some keys had sharper intervals, others were more relaxed, and that gave each one its own unique flavor. So back then, D minor really did sound different from G minor, not just in pitch, but in emotional characteristics. Composers like Bach took advantage of this. His famous well-tempered clavier was literally written to explore all 24 major and minor keys and show off their unique personalities. Bit of that's lost on the piano today when we have it tuned into equal temperament, however, since the intervals are the exact same between every note. Now let's fast forward to the 1800s, where we see the Romantic composers really doubled down on some of these associations. And we can take a look at Beethoven Symphony No. 5 in C minor, and it feels horribly tragic. And how about Chopin's Nocturne in E flat major? It sounds warm, lyrical, almost noble. And then we have Mozart's Requiem in D minor, and I know what you're thinking, Mozart was classical area, but this was 1791, so it pretty much rounds up. But you can really hear in his Requiem the feeling of grief and death creeping up. He did a really great job in that particular piece, creating the mood that is fitting of a requiem. Across hundreds of years, these associations stuck. Composers of the times even published charts describing each key's own emotions, like cheat codes for music. But here's the twist. Once modern equal temperament became standard, those differences between the key signatures started to disappear. Today, every key in equal temperament uses the same interval structure. That means that C major and D major are actually identical, they just have different starting pitches that are shifted higher or lower. So scientifically speaking, there's nothing inherently sad about D minor or inherently heroic about E flat major anymore. So why do we still believe it? So the answer no longer lies in physics so much as psychology. So here's the wild part. Even if equal temperament has erased those little differences between the keys, instruments still resonate differently in certain keys. On string instruments, for example, open strings make some keys sound a lot brighter and more resonant. Take my guitar, for example. When you pluck a string, it rings out. You can hear that resonance, but if you use your finger and clamp down on the string to change its pitch, you You can hear it's a lot less resonant once you clamp it down. If we play chords, we like to play chords with more open strings. Take this E minor for example. It's pretty resonant, you can hear it ring out for a while. And I'm only pressing down on 2 out of the 6 strings. If we go up and play that F chord though, you can hear that's a lot less resonant. It's not going to ring out as long because I'm clamping down on all 6 strings on that. That E minor is a lot more full. Even though it's a minor chord, it's pretty bright, but even if we wanted to brighten it up and make it a major chord, we're going to press down 1 extra string. Now we have 3 out of 6 strings pressed down. And that's an E major chord. You can hear both the bottom and the top string on the guitar ringing out. It's much more resonant than that F chord. And this is true even in brass and woodwind instruments because they create natural harmonics that sound better in certain keys. On instruments like a violin, they're just going to sound better in a key like D that has way more open strings than a key like A flat, where you have to press down all the strings for pretty much every note. So in practice, some keys might actually still sound more powerful, warm, or dark, depending on what instrument you're playing. So, does each key really have its own emotional feeling? Well, historically, yes, because some tuning systems made them sound different. Psychologically, also yes, because culture and famous works have made us feel emotions from certain keys. Scientifically in modern times? No, not really. In equal temperament, all keys are mathematically identical. But practically on our instruments? Sometimes yes. Resonance can make certain keys shine brighter than others depending on what instrument you're playing. In other words, the emotional power of each key isn't necessarily locked in the notes themselves. It lives on in the history, the culture, and the past performances of that key. So the next time you play in C major or in D minor, remember this, you're not just playing the notes, you're actually tapping into centuries worth of storytelling. Now I want to hear from you. Do you feel different emotions from different keys? Drop a comment down below and let me know what your favorite key is and how it makes you feel. I'll be sure to feature some of the best answers in a future video. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into music's hidden secrets, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more, and be sure to share this video with your musician friends. Now thanks for watching, and remember to keep up that fight against awful music.